Probably too.
No, it's all right.
Hey, welcome to BSB TV. This is Kevin Gammy, and today I've got with me Brad Dean from Business Stepo. How you going, Brad?
Well, Kevin, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing excellently. I've got to say, it's really funny. With all this uncertainty, I'm actually finding that people, and we were just discussing it, people are starting to be a little bit more positive, a little bit less scared, a little bit more positive.
I think so. I think I'd categorise it sort of the fog's lifted. There's an acceptance of where we are and some resilience or fortitude around. Well, what have we got to do now to make the best of this situation? So onwards and upwards.
Absolutely. Look, small business owners are a resilient bunch at the best of times, or they wouldn't be in small business. They wouldn't have lasted the first 3 weeks in their business anyway.
Absolutely.
So we do want to congratulate everyone. The thing that is really important when you're thinking about your business, and particularly if there's only a couple of different reasons you're going to have a business, and that is for an income stream. The other one is to create an asset that you can sell.
That's right.
And that's what we want to talk about today, is particularly the asset that you can sell. We don't want you to ignore the income stream side of things, but it's become more and more important that when you create your business, if you want to create that asset to sell, that you take a strategic approach to that, yeah?
Definitely. Look, I think it's often said, but not acted upon regularly enough, that you start with the end in mind when you create a business. And a lot of that is about, putting those foundations in place. And one of the reasons I think this year has shown us is you never know what might happen. Something could happen in life, could be a health event, it could be a pandemic. Someone could walk in and say, hey, Kevin, how much do I got to pay you to get lost? You get someone who wants to buy your business. Now, if you're not set and ready to go, you'll never be able to maximise that opportunity. So, or minimise the downside, depending on what the situation is. So, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I said. So, and as we're discussing, with all of the tools that are out there and the variety, it's buyers are getting more savvy about what they're buying than ever before.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's fair to say, with all due respect, and I mean, I've been a seller quite a few times in my business career, but the buyers are often more sophisticated than the seller, and that's more around the way they're able to analyse information now. And really they're being put through the ringers by financiers, so they have to have good information. But there's also, because of what's available online, all information is out there. It's available to everyone. So there's no keeping anything in your back pocket anymore. It's all out there for everyone to see. So being ready is critical.
Absolutely. It's so easy to be looking at somebody else doing well and going, oh, but that's because that business is so easy. But the reality is that no business is easy, or everybody would be over there and the competition would make it hard instantly.
That's right.
So it's easy. Everything looks easy from a distance. I remember growing up, you'd watch the Olympics and we see Steve Bradbury crossing the line first and going, oh, he just did it so easy. He had to be in position to get into the final in the first place. It's not easy.
20 years of hard work there.
Absolutely. So we do need to think about that. Sellers are getting more sophisticated. Buyers are getting more sophisticated. As a seller, and most people are not like yourself, and they'll probably only sell a business once or twice maybe in their lifetime. And with that, generally, when we first do something, we really suck at it. Think about your first driving lesson. You probably weren't that good. So if you're going to sell a business, you really need to be relying on some expert advice to help you put your business in the best possible light, to actually understand what you're selling, and to make sure that you can maximize the value of that business. Yeah,
definitely. I think having a good team around you, a good accountant and a good lawyer, and look, I qualify that. And this is about having people who have transaction experience. It's not a criticism of accountants or lawyers generally, but selling businesses is a bit of a unique beast. So understanding or working with people And even if I'm working with one of our own clients, a good example is it's critical that business owners get tax advice before they start the sale process. Now, I don't care who your accountant is, you get a second opinion on that. Now, it's
Yeah.
not saying the opinion you've got is wrong. It's more about validating it, and then you proceed through the transaction with confidence, knowing what that outcome is likely to be. So, surround yourself with good people.
I'm so glad when you said, and I've got to validate that you didn't just start having a go at the lawyers because you said
No,
you
not
got
at all.
a good lawyer. I want to validate that, and I was I thought you were going to launch into a lawyer joke there.
No.
Fortunately not. So, as you said, you do need to start with the end in mind. And so many people will be running their businesses and wake up one day absolutely exhausted. They've just had the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I imagine they pick up the phone and go, "Hey, Brad, I want to sell my business. Can you get rid of it by 4 o'clock?"
That's often what happens. And that's why one of the things that is really important to me as part of the process we look at is, sometimes it's helping someone make the right decision or understand the decision, because I can tell you from experience, there can be a big abyss on the other side of selling a business. If you've been working this thing for 10 or 15 or more years and your whole identity is wrapped up in the business and the people and the customers, when you come out the other side, you're no longer Mr. Business Owner, you're Brad Dean walking down the street. And making sure that you've got the right decision. So it's not a case of trying to talk them out of it. It might be about a few home truths, but it's just knowing that they've got all their ducks in a row. So when they hit the go button, they're going to have the best outcome, with the time that we've got available. Because sometimes there are different pressures around sales, but it's about doing what we can with that available time. But we don't like panic sales. So
Absolutely not. Panic sales are like Boxing Day sales,
that's
and
it.
and rarely is a full price ever met.
Buyer's market.
So with that scenario, thinking of that, what are the stages and what should people be thinking about when they're thinking, "Hey, I do want to create an asset to sell and I do want to maximize the value of that"? What are the things that they need to be looking out for so they can be a more sophisticated seller?
Sure. Well, we've started with having the end in mind. So you've got that that foundation about understanding what does drive value in your business, and that's important. And I won't go into a big spiel, but things like the financial performance, having access to good information and having reliable, up-to-date information is critical when you start that process. So really the first step then comes into a lot of those elements around preparation. So have your information up to date. If you're a business that has trading stock is a really good example, and you haven't been doing regular stock takes, it could take you a couple of financial years to get your balance sheet into a position where you can properly look at a sale knowing that you'll maximize the outcome. So you can't just do it overnight. So those preparatory things, a lot of them we call them housekeeping. So it's about taking a buyer's view of the business and looking at it could be the quality of the sign above the front door. It might be how does the business present internally. It can be as fundamental as that, through to some very sophisticated things around, if you've got recurring customers, are any of those contracted? So do we have any guaranteed revenue flowing through the door? So preparation is critical. I've already touched on having a strong team around you, having good advice. And this isn't the time to get advice from around your barbecue. You need proper advice around the transaction, and often we see owners getting caught up around what the sale price will be, and that's critical. But the most important number is what you're left with after the transaction, because that's made up of a few elements. That's contract price. It's also the tax implication, and you've likely got some wealth strategies in there with your financial planner. So what we want to look at is, well, what's going to be left after the sale? So all of this work we do before we even get, putting a business on the market, ideally. So, really it's a lot around, preparation and planning. So that's my general advice to people: is start as early as you can. So
absolutely, and a couple of things you said there. It even took me back to thinking about my old days at uni 1,000 years ago. When I was hammering my notes into a rock. Your 5 Ps of marketing, and you really need to think about this with your business. It is about how you're positioning that business. It is about how you're packaging it. It is about how you are looking at it. It's not only the price. You need to think about all of these things.
That's right. Yeah. How much, one of the big and the toughest discussions we ever have is, reliance on the owner. How is your day-to-day activity in that business impacting the value, and often in a negative way? So what can we do, using systems and processes and the team that you've already got in place to reduce that reliance on you as an owner, which is far more attractive to buyers? Because what we're trying to do is showcase the strength of the business to the broadest possible market. We don't want to narrow it down. And that's why, just to use a little analogy, people often get scared around the due diligence part of the process. But due diligence should be when we're showcasing the business. That's when we're putting everything on display for buyers to see and show them that we're organised and this is a well-run business. It's got opportunity. It's got potential. So they feel good about the process. So
for the buyer, it should almost be that they're opening a gift pack.
Absolutely.
And seeing all these different things pop out at them and everything else. And if we've set our business up right, that's how it's going to be. That's going to be surprising. The other thing that you did touch on earlier on was yes, you have to be focused on the financial performance, but there's been lots of businesses that aren't sold on the basis of financial performance.
No, and that's right.
Massive value.
Sure. And look, we talk about, generically two types of buyers. An income buyer who's buying a revenue stream that you touched on earlier, but the holy grail, if you like, is the strategic buyer. He's the buyer or she's the buyer that sees something different in your business, and it might be the ability to bolt it on to something they already do. So their perception of value and the price they're willing to pay can be vastly different to another type of buyer. And that's where I think technology businesses are an easy one to point to, where we often see, businesses that are barely out of startup phase who, sometimes, as the proof's been in the pudding, there's been nothing there at all, but, a part of the market's got all hot and bothered about them and away it goes. And the share market follows. So it's often about that perception, and that's the difficulty in pricing some businesses, is that two people are looking at the same business through two different perspectives and have two different perceptions of price. So that's why it's important to market as broadly as possible. So.
Absolutely. So it really is about focusing and to be really savvy. If you're thinking about selling your business in 5 years' time, or even in 2 years' time, if you can start, just like as a marketer, you're starting to think about an ideal client, you need to be thinking about who is the ideal
buyer. 100%.
Who is going to be seeing what I have as being of awesome value.
Definitely. Yeah. Always want to build a buyer profile, an ideal buyer profile, and target that, and be willing to talk to anyone.
Absolutely. It doesn't mean that that's the only person who is going to see value. Somebody could come out from absolutely left field and all of a sudden go, hey, what you have here can save me in other ways.
That's
and
right.
If you get into a bidding scenario, they may be able to pay, a monumental price for it.
That's exactly right. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is get that competitive tension between buyers. That's an ideal situation where we've got two buyers that see something different in the business. So that's perfect. So not that we go to auction, but it's the same market force at play. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the same mentality though. Because it's not like people are walking into the business shop and pulling the stock, and there's 5 of them off the shelf. Even 5 very similar looking businesses will have very different profiles in the background.
Definitely.
And therefore could have very different prices. So it's not, going back in time, people go, a business would be valued on X times revenue or X times profitability. and that's what it is. But with all the different tools we have today, with the different look behind the curtain that the buyers can do completely legally, with everything they can do online and all the different searches, and they can look at the reputation of the business and everything else, they can be a lot fussier.
Definitely. Yeah. Get organised early.
Is there anything that we've missed out?
Look, I think probably just a couple of general considerations, that the sale process takes longer than people generally think. I can't stress that enough. Even with the well-organised businesses, there's still a process to go through, and it takes many months. It's not something that happens. Look, I've seen them happen quite quickly, but that's generally the exception, not the rule. So be prepared that you're probably looking at a best case 3 to 6 months, sometimes a little longer. Know your numbers. You've got to know not only your financial performance numbers, but you're understanding your value early on. Because if you're using retirement as an example, you need to understand what number you need to meet your personal goals and objectives. Well, there's no point finding out when you go to contract that you're not going to get anywhere near that amount of money for your business. So you need to know that early on, so that you can take whatever steps might be required. So I think having those understandings early on is really critical, and then doing what you can to understand what the process is going to hold. And that's personally when I'm working with people, and you'll find if you go to the Business Depot website, there's an ebook you can download that's I've dumped out of my head most of the things that happen when you're selling a business, good and bad, and just be aware of what the process might hold. It can be a bit of a roller coaster sometimes. So
absolutely. I'll even get you, after we've finished talking, to put a link to that ebook in the commentary here, so that people can actually get in and download that. I am hoping that you are getting their details at that stage, so you can follow them up and help them professionally. So it really is, as we said, it's not a simple process. It's also not. People also need to take emotions out of it, largely because it's not personal. When someone walks in and says, "I feel your business is worth blah," you're probably going to be disappointed in a first offer. They are trying to buy an asset, and like if you go to buy a second-hand car, you want to get that as cheaply as you possibly can. Of course, you're going to put in a low ball offer. So we need to remember that, yes, that may have been your life's work in one sense, but you have derived a great income from it. And right now, somebody else is looking to take your business on the next part of that business journey, and they're looking to buy that as cheaply as they possibly can, so that they don't overcapitalize as well.
No, that's right. So, you've got to, as much as you can, try and keep emotion out of it. And that's where, people like me get in the middle there. That's our role. I'd really counsel against people trying to sell businesses themselves. And you can argue that, perhaps I'm compromised in that view, but it's not, you're not going to get the good outcome. You're too close to what's going on. And what we're trying to do when we're preparing businesses well for sale, when we're backed up with really good data, is to move, from a negotiation to a calculation, because what we're putting in front of a buyer is substantiated by information, so it can't be refuted. They might have a different opinion of it, and that's the world, but they can't refute the data. And that's the important part, so that we're verifying everything that we're telling them about the business. And that takes a lot of the air out of their tyres sometimes, because what will happen then is they start to realise how good a business it is, and good businesses you pay for. And that's what we're trying to get to. So,
absolutely. No, that's fantastic. Any last words?
Look, be considered in your decision. That'd be I'll probably finish there. And it is a huge decision. So take your time, thinking through it and what it means. Don't rush it if you can. But I'd also counter that something I like to talk to all owners about as early as I can is that being having a sale-ready business doesn't mean that you want to sell your business tomorrow. It's also about protecting the value of the business that you've created. You know, it's about creating a resilient business. It's about creating a business that's less reliant on you. And that means you've got a more valuable business and a business that is more attractive to buyers. And that's what this is all about. But it doesn't mean you're selling tomorrow. You're protecting the value of your business from unexpected events that can occur. So all of this work has a value. And we know that businesses that are sale ready are better performing businesses. So you get a performance kick out of it at the same time. So you know, that's sort of the mindset I'd like to leave people with. Don't just pigeonhole it as being about selling out. Think about it as protecting the value you've created. That's what I'd like to leave people with.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a beautiful part of this journey. Just because you invest the time, effort, energy, and you know, invest in advisors to get your business ready for sale doesn't mean you have to sell.
No.
And as you just pointed out, they're probably going to get an income and lifestyle benefit out of doing that anyway, because they're setting the business up to be ready to run without them.
That's it. That's the idea.
Yeah. And if you're in that position, then of course, if you want to take an extended holiday as a trial, you can do that. And you can, you know, from a distance, monitor how the business is performing so that you absolutely know and that the business is bulletproof. Now, you may then decide to do that for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Some people decide not to sell after going through a process, and that's an awesome outcome. If you can almost get the best of both worlds. But if you want to sell it, it's ready to go. That's the benefit of the work. So
it's just an extension of that show, Love It or List It, around real estate, isn't it?
It
is. So look, right. I really appreciate your effort. I've known the guys from Business Depot over a long period of time from my recruiting days, recruiting accountants. You know, they've been together for the best part of 20 years. You know, really smart guy, really smart team that you've got there that can help businesses on a range of different service offerings. So please, if you are thinking about selling your business one day in the future, you could do a lot worse than downloading the ebook that Brad's going to put into the commentary here.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you soon. Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Thank you.